Welcome to the video dictionary. Okay. So I think I'm a little loud. Let's fix that. Okay. So, doesn't look like anyone's here yet, but I mostly just wanted to kind of do this as a live event thing. So, and I wanted to react to the videos and stuff and just not have a lot of editing to do. So here we go. And now my cat wants some attention. So let's see. So let's start with the first one I saw today when I was looking over the news. I was looking over just Google News, and I saw that Merriam-Webster released their word of the year. That's what it is. Justice. Let's take a look at this article. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay, let's see if I can find their... Oh, they don't put their YouTube video up right away. Okay, so... Didn't prepare anything either, so we'll watch this together.
Merriam-Webster's word of the year is determined by our online dictionary lookup data. The word must show both high volume of traffic and show significant year-over-year increase in lookups at merriam-webster.com. Merriam-Webster's word of the year for 2018 is justice.
Probably shouldn't leave this.
It was a top lookup throughout the year, 74% more than in 2017. We see spikes in our data that correspond to certain news events and stories reported in the media that help us to understand what drove many people to look up justice so much more frequently this year. The word and the concept of justice has been at the center of so many of our national debates in the past year. Racial justice, social justice, criminal justice, economic justice. Any conversation about these topics can naturally lead to seeking a clearer idea of what we mean when we speak of justice. This year's news had many, many stories involving the branch of government responsible for the enforcement of laws, the Department of Justice. It's sometimes just referred to as justice, including in President Trump's tweets. News stories drive lookups, as when the Justice Department reversed its policy of lenient enforcement of marijuana laws, announced its support for a lawsuit against opioid manufacturers, proposed a ban on bump stocks, and began an investigation of Tesla. Of course, the investigation led by Robert Mueller is constantly in the news and is being carried out through the Justice Department. The term obstruction of justice spiked on August 1st, the day that President Trump tweeted his wish for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to stop the Mueller investigation. In late September, justice as a synonym or title for a judge spiked during the Kavanaugh Supreme Court hearings. Justice might seem like a very common word, but it's often familiar words for abstract concepts that are among the most looked up words in the dictionary. When common words are used in contexts that are very specific, technical, or legal, we turn to the dictionary for the detail and nuance that a definition can have. Our definition is the maintenance or administration of what is reasonable, correct, lawful, or deserved, especially by the impartial resolution of conflicting claims or the assignment of merited rewards or punishments.
It's not a bad definition.
Other words that were looked up frequently.
I think I'm gonna cover, guys, looking this over earlier, I found some good stuff from Plato and Aristotle about what justice is that I think is important and we can cover while we're here.
This year make up our top 10. Lodestar was used in the anonymous New York Times op-ed by an insider from the Trump administration. Nationalism has been looked up more
We should look up
frequently
some of
in
these.
general, and also
Lodestar.
had a big spike when President Trump declared himself a nationalist. Feckless was looked up in large numbers after Samantha Bee was criticized for using it to modify an obscene word on her show. Laurel
Doesn't say what C
spiked
word
for
that is.
linguistic reasons. People online were split over
Now
who heard
Yanny.
Laurel and who heard Yanny in an audio pronunciation that revealed differences of hearing perception. Pansexual spiked when Janelle Monáe declared that she was one. Epiphany spiked from a video by the K-pop group BTS in August. Pissant, meaning insignificant person, was used by a Boston sports radio host to refer to Tom Brady's young daughter, and Brady politely but firmly objected to the word. Finally, 3 words were looked up following the deaths of prominent Americans: Maverick for John McCain, Excelsior for Stan Lee, and Respect for Aretha Franklin.
Audio echoing?
Looking at the year through the prism of vocabulary by analyzing our lookup data reminds us that words matter. Justice is a word at the heart of many issues in our society. Through the dictionary, we can make these connections with words that tell us something about our culture, our language, and ourselves.
Well, let's do some investigation of our own. So I think this probably covers most of what they had to say in there. Yep. I'm curious. I've never heard the word lodestar, so I'm going to look that up. I've probably heard it, but I've never thought to look it up. A star that leads or guides, especially North Star. One that serves as an inspiration, model, or guide. Nice. Okay. Well, let's do some research here. I like Wikipedia because it's a good jumping off point, and it'll give us some place to... It'll give us a place to jump off from. Why can I not just go to Wikipedia? There we go. We're going to start with justice. And I want to go to the disambiguation first, and I think... Yes, I'll give you some money at some point. Here. According to Aristotle, justice consists in a certain equality by which the just and definite claim of another, neither more nor less, is satisfied. So it's when oh, hello. Just. I see you there. Let me make this full screen. This isn't the one I thought it would be. There was one where it was described as justice is the point at which, I think this was Plato, and I don't remember where I saw it earlier, but justice is the point between, like the perfect middle between selflessness and selfishness. It's when everybody gets exactly what they deserve. And so so that's what justice is. So if you deserve to get more, you get more. If you deserve to get less, you get less. Not too much, just looking over the words that that were selected. So we've got justice and toxic. We're going over justice first. And I'm finding it... I found it very interesting, and I thought I'd have more to say initially, so I thought I'd do a live stream about it. So if you have anything you want to add, I'll read any comments or chats that you make here. Within reason. This is an interesting portion of it right here. As far as like rights are concerned, 2 children have different rights from a certain adult if that adult is the parent of one of them and not of the other. Aristotle developed the idea of equity to cover irregular cases so that ordinance is framed to fit the circumstance. I can look up the word just, and let's hit the I'll hit the Oxford English Dictionary next here. That's a good idea, so we can find the root words and stuff. We'll start with justice, and we'll just go over the etymology real quick, because I think it's a pretty straightforward etymology. Iestisha, that was the name of the goddess Justice in Rome. But let's see, it comes from Anglo-Norman, so we get it from the French. Justice, or just behavior, moral uprightness, power. See high justice, institutions representing the law. So it looks like it's not necessarily the case that just is. Here we go. It looks like in France, that word just. Where are we looking at here? Just. And we'll go back to the etymology here. Joust. Juste. That does what is morally right or in accordance with religious principle. First quarter of the 12th century in Old French. Honest and impartial in dealing with people. First half of the 12th century. Of a thing consonant with okay. Where was I? I just saw everyone. Hello, Reason Vision. Welcome. That conforms to required or agreed standards, precise, exact, well-founded, correct, or accurate. First half of the 14th century or earlier. Lawful, legally valid, of clothes, of an exact fit. Istas. Rightful, deserved, fair, impartial. Here, let's go back here. Looks like the root word of just is jure, so we can go even further back. Like jurisprudence. Looks like it's mostly an obsolete word from Latin. Here, let's take a look at Oxford's word of the year. I think this one will be interesting.
The Oxford Word of the Year 2018 is toxic. Toxic is defined as poisonous. and ultimately has its origins in the Greek toxicon pharmakon, meaning poison for arrows. Yet when borrowed into Latin, it was the Greek for arrows or archery, toxicon, that made the leap, rather than the word for poison.
I found that interesting.
Cut to 2018, and
I'll
our
double-check
research
that.
shows that this year, more than ever, people have been using toxic to describe a vast array of things, situations, concerns, and events. In its original literal use, to refer to poisonous substances, toxic has been ever present in discussions of the health of our communities and our environment, with toxic air, toxic algae, toxic chemicals, toxic fumes, toxic waste, and even toxic slime hitting the headlines. Not to mention the continued public condemnation of the toxicity of plastics. And it's not just the physical being touted as toxic this year. Toxic has truly taken off into the realm of metaphor, as people have reached for the word to describe workplaces,
Bet you can see
schools,
where this is going.
cultures, relationships, and stress, lending a personal angle to this year of toxicity. Personal, but also political. The hashtag #MeToo movement has put the spotlight on toxic masculinity, while in politics more broadly, the word has been applied to the rhetoric, policies, agendas, and legacies of leaders and governments around the globe. In 2018, toxic has become a potent descriptor for the year's most talked about topics, adding more and more strings to its poisonous bow. It's the sheer scope of its application that has made it the standout
They
choice
did.
for the Oxford Word of the Year.
The thing I found it most interesting about both of these videos, the Oxford one and the Merriam-Webster one, is they didn't do as much commentary on it as I thought they would. I thought they were going to go full SJW and actually talk about it, but no. They just said that's what it is because that's what was searched for. I think Merriam-Webster's had the better word. I think justice is a good one for this year because that's been a topic that's come up pretty frequently. And especially if that's really what their searched, the most searched word was. I really need a partner for these. So here, let's do, I want to look up toxic here. We'll do that. See what we got. Adjective, noun. Of the nature of a poison, poisonous. Medieval Latin, toxicus, poisoned, imbued with poison. Wow, that's not giving me a huge etymology there. I want to know where they got the information about the arrows. If I could type, it would help. Disambiguified. Let's see if I can find what they were looking for, that tox.
Toxic has become a potent descriptor. Cut to, in the Greek, toxicon pharmakon, meaning poison.
Toxicon pharmakon. Let's just do toxicon and see what that comes up with. They really... check out etymology online. From French, toxique. Our language has a whole lot of French in it. And directly from Latin, toxicus, poisoned. From Latin, toxicum. From Greek, toxicon, pharmacon, poison, for use on arrows. From toxicon, neuter of toxicos, pertaining to arrows or archery, and thus to a bow. From toxon, bow, probably from the Scythian word that also was borrowed into Latin, taxus, yew, like the wood. Possible source. That's very interesting. Let's see. So the Oxford English Dictionary always puts the oldest definition of the word first. So we can look at what their definition, we'll go back to justice for a moment. So the root word, as the God Emperor here already said, was just, of justice. First definition. Yeah, you. That's a yew tree. So it would make sense that a type of wood would be named after bows or other materials that bows were made out of. I learned that from playing, I think it was Lord of the Rings Online, where there's yew trees everywhere that you have to harvest to make stuff. But let's go back here. Of a thing that conforms to a required or agreed standard, right, and amount, proportion, aesthetic, quality. Of a time or place, adapted to something else, or to an end or purpose, appropriate, suitable. It's just right. It's then we go back to justice, and apparently the oldest definition of the word justice in English goes all the way back to administration of law. Maintenance of what is just or right by the exercise of authority or power, assignment of deserved rewards or punishment, giving due deserts. Corrective justice, distributive justice, these are all examples. So distributive justice would essentially be like socialism. Poetic justice. Restorative justice, that means restoring. If you do damages, you have to restore. And then we're all familiar with social justice here. I like reading some of these attributions here that go back. So this is: he died God's justice and maked pays. This is like the oldest examples they have of these words. People have actually gone through and just read documents upon documents trying to find examples of words going back so they can actually attribute it to a certain date and figure out what the oldest definition was. And so part of this first definition of administration of law or equity. Punishment of an offender, retribution deemed appropriate for a crime, especially capital punishment, execution. An instant of this, a punishment. And apparently this is an obsolete usage. Doesn't sound like it's, I mean, you could call justice, like, a death sentence justice still, but, and it would make sense. But it's not one that's commonly used anymore. A place or instrument of execution, a gallows. Obsolete, so it's no longer used that way anymore. Okay, so we're down to definition 3 here. The administration of law due to legal process, judicial proceedings, and early use legal proceedings of any kind. Here, let's see, we'll skip ahead to number 2 here. This is one that I think came up a lot because people may have been searching for, like, justice, like Chief Justice, or like when Kavanaugh was being put through to the court. The people on the court are called justices. And so a judicial officer, a judge or magistrate. First time it was used in writing appears to be yeah. I'm probably going to do a full video on these words and give what I think the definition is. Now, the fact that you have to put a modifier in something, in front of something, makes it different than what it is. And in the case of Merriam-Webster's, that's an interesting reason. Just got your message about the word you. But back to the modifiers. So if you have to modify the word justice, it's not really justice anymore. That's the issue with it. Justice means everyone gets what they deserve. If you put in the effort, you get out the reward. Now, that doesn't always mean the reward is good, or doesn't always mean that you get what you've worked for. It just means you get what's coming to you. So if someone takes something away from you, they have to repay it to you. That would be justice. Social justice, what that does is it breaks people down into groups of people, and it starts creating group justice, basically. So this whole social justice community has done things, and this is something that is, I think, best exemplified by like a cultural appropriation is a good way to, is like the best example. So we have something called intellectual property law. So if I write a book, I own the copyright to that book. For someone to copy it, they would have to pay me or get my permission. Now, with cultural appropriation, they've taken the individualist idea. They've taken that idea, the idea that someone can own ideas, essentially, intellectual property, and they've expanded that out to a community of people. This social group owns Mexican food. This social group owns the kimono. If you're a part of a different social group, you can't use that without express permission. The issue you have when you start applying individual rights to entire groups of people is it's no longer possible for the group to give up their right. Because one Asian person can't say, okay, you've got permission to wear a kimono. Or, like, I think another good example of this is when Milo Yiannopoulos was speaking, and he would say something like, everyone here gets a fag pass. One gay man can't give up the rights of the rest of the gay community. And that's the issue with this social justice thing, is if he gave up that particular part of being a homosexual, does that make it to these people, from their perspectives, does that make it okay? There's no way to bypass these permissions. There's no way to grant further permissions in this thing. That's one of the reasons it's impossible to, like, do anything. It's impossible to say anything without possibly stepping on someone's toes in these communities. It just doesn't work. And I think that's the problem with social justice or economic justice. Then you're breaking people down by economic class, and you can't. A poor person can't say, I'm willing to work for less than minimum wage. They can't agree to that, because that would hurt the rest of the community of poor people. And so there's just, I don't like this whole idea of putting adjectives in front of words. And now I like what Reason Vision says here, newspeak. Again, perfectly created word by George Orwell that is just people tweaking things just a little bit by putting a little word in front of it. Now, as far as the Oxford word of the year, the word toxic, it can be put in front of a lot of things, and it's a good modifier for a lot. And it's not terrible as a metaphor, because people can have toxic personalities and just be terrible people. And I'm sure we all know people like that. But as far as, like, you said toxic masculinity, and they said toxic masculinity in their piece. Where is that? It's mainly used to smear things in this case, because I mean that doesn't actually say anything. What's toxic about the masculinity? It doesn't actually is like, are you just saying misplaced aggression, or are you saying that masculinity is toxifying the situation? Okay. So I've been talking for probably close to an hour now. I don't think I've done very much. I don't think I've got accomplished what I wanted to do, but I need to get back into doing live streams. Thank you to everyone that showed up. I really appreciate it. I hope it was entertaining. I really need to plan out what I have to say a little bit more so I have a little bit better idea. But thank you for watching, and I should have another video up by Monday, hoping. I'm not sure what word I'm doing. Might do justice, might do toxic because I've just been doing a lot of research into those. BitChute actually recommended trying to find the opposite of freedom. So I'm probably going to do one on the word serfdom, because I just really like I like the way Friedrich Hayek used that in the title of his book. So thank you for watching.